Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's good to have you all here. My name is Oluwayemisi Ojo, and I'm a project officer at the Global Schools Program. And on behalf of the Global Schools Program, I'm really very excited to welcome you all to this ECOSOC side event on SDG4, Education for Sustainable Development, Examples from Global Schools Youth in Action. So last year, we started a project documenting the experiences of global schools advocates across the world and how they have been able to get past the lot of hurdles of teaching education for sustainable development and covering such very important topics as global climate change, gender equality, and other social issues affecting our generation in the classrooms. And despite the challenges they faced at the beginning, they realized there was a very high turnaround rate in their teaching and how it helps promote general learning in classrooms. And we have had thousands of teachers from across the world, around over 6 continents, in Asia, Africa, North, South America, and Europe, using the same method, lesson plans, and the Global Schools Activities Guide to achieve the massive results that they've noticed in their classrooms. And today we'll be showcasing a few of these examples in our discussions on education. And so just like Nelson Mandela had rightly said some time ago, that education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. We are hoping that this event will motivate you to be able to also take actions toward achieving sustainable development in your communities. And so it is on that note that once again, I'm welcoming every one of you to this event. Before we get really started, I'd like to just invite Amanda Abram, the program manager for Global Schools, to just say a little thing about Global Schools and the project we're involved in, and also to welcome you all. Amanda, over to you.
Thank you so much, Yemisi, for the warm welcome. I won't take too much of your time because we have a lot to cover and a lot of people to hear from, but I just want to thank everyone for being here today to discuss SDG4 and quality education. At Global Schools, we really appreciate the opportunity to host a side event at the ECOSOC Youth Forum, because Global Schools was founded by the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Youth, and ever since we've really been working to promote sustainable development education. The program first started as training youth advocates to go out to schools and to mobilize people around the SDGs. And as Yemisi explained, now we really work on training teachers as Global Schools advocates to really work in a more integrated and intentional way to bring sustainable development education into their school communities. So I feel very privileged that I've been able to see this program grow from a youth-led movement to a youth-led, fully fledged international education program. So in the past year, we reached over 102,000 students with our different activities, and approximately 12,000 teachers participated in our Trainers of Trainers workshops and presentations that we did on sustainable development. We also published a case study guide that features the work of our teachers, and you'll hear from some of those teachers and educators today. And while there are a lot of things going on in the world and global challenges, we really chose to focus this session on not only a discussion of education and leadership, but also a panel of what is working in education, what are some solutions that you can emulate and take with you. So for all of the ECOSOC youth delegates here, we hope this really sets the stage for the rest of the conference as you go into the rest of the conference this week, giving you some items to think about and advocate for, and to really be intentional with the rest of your week at ECOSOC. So without any further ado, I'll hand it back over to Yemisi to take us through the rest of our session today.
Thank you so much, Amanda. As you've heard her, there's so much to cover and a lot of interesting things you get to know about the Global Schools Program and the work and the effort of teachers from all around the world has been working in different regions to make sure that education for sustainable development is attainable in the world. And so moving forward, we'll be having a keynote address, and maybe you're wondering, so what about education, and what exactly is the importance of education in transforming our world? So we will be having a keynote speaker who will be talking about the importance of quality education and transformative leadership for the Sustainable Development Goals. And it is my pleasure to to introduce our keynote speaker, Elizabeth. I was going to call her Miss Elizabeth Filippoli, but she said to just call her Elizabeth. So I will just read a little of her bio, and then she will do the keynote. Elizabeth is a journalist, writer, and social entrepreneur. Her early career as a broadcast journalist and in Greece had a very huge impact on her role now as an activist and a serial entrepreneur for over 10 years now. Elizabeth is the founder of the London-based Global Thinkers Forum, an independent civil society agency, which started in the University of Oxford. The Global Thinkers Forum has promoted value-based decision leadership in the past and is still doing that, and also supports women and young persons through mentorship programs and other initiatives, and has launched several projects on the platform. I mean, one of their projects has been Athens 40, a program advancing women's leadership by creating opportunities for recognition, mentorship, and partnership. And Elizabeth has also served on the Global Advisory Board of the Prince Trust International, supporting underprivileged youth through mentorship. And she has a bachelor's in German literature and had several masters. Her first was a master in transnational media and globalization at London City University. And then later she had another in strategy and innovation at Oxford Saïd Business School. It's also notable to say that she has a certificate in creative writing at Harvard University. And she's also author. She has authored different books. One of her books is called The Invisible Reality, which was published in Greece in 2004. Her book, another one, is titled From Women to the World, Letters for a New Century, which was published by IB Tauris in July 2021. And in 2020, she also co-authored another one that is titled Kindness in Leadership in Times of Crisis. And if you've been wondering why she's so passionate about these things and where she get that gene from, then I'd like to also mention that Elizabeth is the daughter of the journalist, author, and playwright Stamatis Filippoli and an antique dealer, Eleni Filippoli. Her uncle was a pioneering Greek publisher, and her great-grand-aunt was the first woman who was elected mayor in Greece. So she grew up in the world of journalism, publishing, performing art, surrounded by journalists, writers, and actors. And it is my pleasure once again to welcome Elizabeth Filippoli to this event, and also have her give the remarks. Over to you.
Thank you, Yemisi, and Amanda and Hafiz and all the team at Global Schools. I'm delighted to be with you, and I'm sending my warm regards and warm greetings to everyone around the world who is attending today's ECOSOC Youth Forum and all the activities this week. I have been invited by the fantastic Global Schools team to address this forum at a time that I think we will agree is a very difficult and dangerous time for humanity, because we are currently going through a period in human history which we did not expect to witness in our lifetime, at least. And at the beginning of this millennium, I always, like to visit history and what happened, and the books that you just mentioned, Yemisi. I always visit the background of the events that we are experiencing today. And so going back 22 years ago, at the beginning of this millennium, some of you were not even born yet. The leading elites of this world were hopeful and optimistic about the future ahead. We had been told that we should be celebrating about what seemed to be the beginning of an era of peace and synergies and prosperity together. And that Cold War era before then, it seemed to be behind, or so we thought. And polarizing political ideologies had lost momentum, or so we thought. And despite regional tensions and local issues, the world as a global community seemed to have found a shared vision, a vision guided by the common will to prosper in peace together. So we thought. The European Union was expanding at a fast pace, generating ripples of enthusiasm and excitement around Europe as a welcoming community that would prioritize solidarity. It would secure prosperity, and it could guarantee peace. And we had been promised a fast track to progress, education, social benefit, and a prosperous future. So we thought. On that same year, in 2000, the world leaders recognized the fact that accountability must be prioritized. Poorer economies, underprivileged societies, disadvantaged communities of people should not be left behind. And so, as we all remember, to address those issues, the United Nations announced the Millennium Goals. And the intention was to effect positive change in the lives of billions of people. The intention was there. But as the proverb goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And so unmet commitments and inadequate resources and lack of accountability and insufficient interest in sustainable development, it meant all these different factors meant that only a fraction of the Millennium Goals was met. The overall mission failed to deliver as hoped and as expected. But visiting that decade, many other things did not really go as planned or did not really go well. 9/11 happened. Global terrorism was on the rise. The subprime mortgage market crisis in America, which triggered recessions in the US and the UK. And then in the Arab world, it was a chain of social revolutions that swept through several countries in North Africa and the Middle East. And the European Union came under the shock of Greece's bankruptcy. Let's go to 2015, when national governments and global leaders revisited the challenges facing our societies. And then they decided to announce a new group of urgent matters around which the 17 Sustainable Development Goals have been structured, with 2030 being our new deadline. The problems are many, and they have been exacerbated by the global pandemic. We all know the problems all too well, I'm afraid. Lack of access to opportunities and resources, poverty, inequality, discrimination, global population movement, human rights violations, inequality, wars and turbulence and insecurity. And finally, of course, you mentioned it, Yemisi, the environment, the ecosystem where humans survive. It is in danger, and there is something that needs to be done. How did we end up here? What is it that we need to do? Well, I know that in your minds, possibly in everyone's mind really these days, the main question is how we are going to get out of the mess that we are in. A global pandemic that hit the world so badly more than 2 years ago has created a litany of disruption across many sectors. And I'm sure that many of you, or all of you, must be wondering about the future. You must be wondering about your studies and careers, your professional and economic future, and the future of your nations, your societies, and our global nation, of course. I assume that you are all also wondering about your personal lives, your family, your relationships, and also your inner life, as we call it, your psychology, because our psychologies have been affected by all this uncertainty and the insecurity around us. And I assume that, like me perhaps, you are probably angry about the failures of the leaders of this world, political leaders, government leaders, decision makers, intellectual elites, journalists, and pundits. Let's face it, the leading elites have let us down. Not everyone, because I don't like to be aphoristic and claim that there aren't leading minds out there who do great things for this world and have been trying to alarm us about the imperative to prioritize solidarity and collaboration. But truth be told, how come the mighty and the wise of this world did not foresee and prevent, rather, the disastrous events that landed on us? And how could they leave us so exposed to danger and so vulnerable? Where are the strong social systems that we had been promised? Where are the synergies and the peaceful societies that the leaders of this world had pledged to us? Today, I have this opportunity to address you. And although we cannot ignore the gloominess that is around us, at the same time, I do wish to send you the message that we can find hope and positivity and optimism, and we can take things in our hands and fight tribalism, fight segregation, prioritize understanding. We must appreciate that if we do not do that, then we are indeed in great danger. And I will repeat the recent words of a thinker whom I respect, Noam Chomsky. He said, I think, a few days ago that we are approaching the most dangerous point in human history. We are now facing the prospect of destruction of organized human life on Earth. In plain English, it is as if we are fighting each other on board a moving bus that is heading off a cliff. We are all going to be killed. We need to connect with our common sense. We need to connect with our humanity, the meaning and importance of repositioning ourselves as a civilized species. Let me share with you a story. Years ago, American anthropologist Margaret Mead, she was asked what she considered to be the first sign of civilization in a culture. And one perhaps would expect that Mead would talk about fish hooks or clay pots or grinding stones. But no, what Mead said was that the first sign of civilization in an ancient culture was a thigh bone that had been broken and then healed. Think about it. In the animal kingdom, if an animal breaks its leg, it's going to die. It cannot run from danger. It cannot get to the river to drink water, neither hunt for food. It's becoming meat for prowling beasts. No animal survives a broken leg long enough for the bone to heal. And so a broken thigh bone that is healed is evidence that someone has taken the time to stay with the one who fell, has bound up the wound, has carried the person to safety, and has tended the person through recovery. Helping someone else through difficulty is where civilization begins. If we want to call ourselves a civilized species, then we must serve others. We must support others. We must help each other through this. This is how we can direct humanity towards a path of collaboration, peace, and above all, survival. I would like, as my final part, to visit the role of, as you mentioned before, the importance of the role of education and knowledge. And you mentioned my studies, and thank you for that. It's because I believe in lifetime education. I believe that if we can have access to knowledge, then we must seize that opportunity and we must pay this forward to other people. That was the reason why Global Thinkers Forum launched the mentoring programs Athena and Telemachus 8 years ago. I know that the forum is focused on the imperative to invest in and prioritize education. I also agree with the statement that students must be more equipped to effectively navigate the social, environmental, and economic problems of the 21st century. I will agree that if there is one thing that we must offer to young people worldwide, this is knowledge. Knowledge is the most important gift you can make to someone, to help people out of poverty, to empower youth to reach their dreams, to learn to appreciate the beauty of diversity, to understand the importance of gender equality, to become more tolerant and understanding. Again, this is why we launched these programs. But I must mention something which I think is extremely important, that I believe in knowledge in its deeper sense, not fragmented information. It is about knowledge that comes along with critical thinking. So we must cultivate critical thinking among our youth. We must nurture that deeper perception of the complexities of our unpredictable world. It is only then that knowledge becomes wisdom. More than 2 years ago into this global pandemic, and I look back at my own life and my own thinking, and I thought of sharing with you, in case they are useful, some of the lessons that I learned over the last 2 years. Reality around us seems like a video game, a game designed to challenge the players all the time by throwing at us, the most unexpected hurdles. We must expect that our lives can be turned and will be turned upside down from one moment to another. And therefore, we must always be prepared for a plan B and even a plan C. A crisis is always an opportunity, and the new direction may be much more rewarding than your initial one. At times, we may need to compromise. We may need to take a few steps back before we start moving forward again. Patience is very important, and it is the best advisor for a successful strategy. We must challenge the perception that we can predict the future. The unthinkable can happen, and it's fine. We need adaptability, yes. We need resilience, yes, and patience, and things will be fine again. This is life, and life is unpredictable, and this world is a world in shift. We must integrate, assimilate in a changing environment, and I do not mean to lose our identity or uniqueness or authenticity. I mean to prioritize our universal values rather than our cultural differences, and to think of ourselves and others as positive contributors to our culturally diverse societies. And if our leaders do not prioritize understanding and tolerance, then we must challenge them, even replace them. Let's give power to those who can meet the expectations of the people and address our social needs. We must expand our thinking and accept that outdated theories will only keep us in the past, and we should reimagine our sense of community. Let's find ways to dream together. Let's create opportunities for new friendships and for shared social dreaming. On a policy-making level, let us push our governments to create parliamentary committees for the future. These committees will be tasked to study the past, but also monitor the weak signals that foreshadow new trends and upcoming changes. Let's ask our institutions to make it mandatory that all nations introduce the role of the Future Generations Commissioner, a person that will communicate to the government the needs of the younger generations. And I'm sure that these commissioners would be found and can be found amongst you. Let's push our governments to introduce new portfolios, such as the Ministry of Possibilities, the Ministry of Collaboration, the Ministry for the UN Global Goals. Before I leave you, I will say that our hopes are on you, the new generation of social impact leaders. I will encourage you to be innovators and change makers and prioritize dialogue and mutual respect and a shared prosperous future. This is what defines visionary leadership, accountable leadership. And in the words of William Gibson about our world, the future is already here. It is just unevenly distributed. So I encourage you to take it in your capable hands. Thank you for listening, and do apply for our mentoring programs. You can always email us on info@globalthinkersforum.org.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was a powerful remark. And I think your last statement just stuck with me, that the future is here. It's just unevenly distributed. And those were really powerful words. Thank you for stating over and over again the importance of the young generation and the importance of critical thinking and deeper perception to help us develop the wisdom to be able to handle certainty as it is obtainable right now in our world. Thank you so much. That was really powerful remarks. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Good luck with the rest of your activities. And I'm always here, and the forum is always here for all of you.
Definitely. Thank you. Okay, so moving on now, if you're just joining once again, welcome. And I mean, we've had one session where we had the remarks by Elizabeth Filippoli, and right now we'll be going to the panel session with some of our global schools advocates who has been doing tremendous work at their different regions, trying to localize the education for sustainable development across their classrooms. So right now, we'll be having the panel session talking about education for sustainable development and global schools program case studies, showcasing local examples from young educators about SDG4 activities in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So I'm really glad right now to introduce this global schools advocate whom we have worked with over time and whom I have been part of the story of their tremendous work. And we have with us Abigail Martinez from Mexico, Ramadani Rashidi from Tanzania, and Kenneth Kwok from Hong Kong. And so I'll just say a little about them, and then they can just, and then we'll have the panel session. So Abigail is an educator committed to social justice and sustainable development, and she was an advocate of the Global Schools program in 2021 while working at a middle school teaching English language and to students in their 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. She currently collaborates with My World Mexico as the mentorship program Action SDGs. She's a deputy coordinator. And during her journey, she has collaborated with several NGOs, assisted public and private institutions in over 9 countries in different activities related to sustainable development. And she has also guided educators' professional development in issues around sustainability. So currently, Abigail is a UNESCO chair in adult literacy and learning for social transformation and a PhD scholar at the University of East Anglia. And she's looking at the role of online learning networks and the learning processes and literacy practices of activists for sustainable development in Latin America. Abigail, it's nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for the invite.
Yeah. And we have Kenneth Kwok. Kenneth is the founder and CEO of Global Citizens Capital, an impact venture focused on education, technology, and healthcare. Kenneth is, he also founded the Kids for SDGs, which is a nonprofit with a core mission to empower and enrich the future of young people through education, employment, and entrepreneurship. Kenneth, his work as a teacher featured prominently in our guidebook that we titled Practicing Education for Sustainable Development. And Kenneth, it's good to have you here with us.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward.
Yeah. And lastly, I'd like to introduce Ramadani Rashidi. Ramadani, our third panelist, currently works as a teacher at Ruanchamga Primary School in Tanzania. And he's a global schools advocate and former mentor for the last cohort of the Global Schools Advocate. Ramadani's work also featured prominently in the guidebook that I'm sure that at a later time you get to find out the other educators whose stories have been featured in the Global Schools Advocate Guidebook. Ramadani, it's good to have you here as well. So without taking more time, if you have, I understand that there'll be questions, and so because of time, we might not be able to take the questions in person. So if you use the chat box and just let us know all your questions, and we will try as much as possible at the end of the panel session to handle as many questions as we can. So I will just give it over to Abigail now to start, after which we'll go to Kenneth and then to Ramadani. Over to you, Abigail.
Thank you. So thank you, Yemisi. Well, I'm not going to share any screen or something because we have a very short time, but I'm going to share you some resources that my students created, just in case you want to look at them a little bit further. Like after what I'm going to say. Well, like I participated as a Global Schools advocate last year. I was just an advocate for 6 months. I took the training, which was very wide opening for me as an educator to see how to implement sustainable development in my education. As it was mentioned already, I was working in a middle school. So just to give you a little bit of context, I'm from Mexico. I was working in a middle school in Ciudad Juarez that is using the border between Mexico and the States. So it's an area where we have a lot of social issues, especially with gender equality and environment. We live in a desert, so we don't have enough water. We struggle a lot with international policies as well, international market, drugs, things, and well, so many social, environmental, and economic issues. So I implemented education for sustainable development is an essential thing in a lot of schools, right? And as part of this program, well, I was teaching English literacy, and I tried to implement education for sustainable development through monthly projects. So while I was doing my curriculum, or while I was implementing it, I tried to implement one of the areas of sustainable development within these curriculums. And just to give you some examples, like for example, when we were talking about one of the examples that stuck more the most, when we were talking about essays and how to contrast two different opinions, I asked my students how to write an essay about one topic that was very polarized. And they decided to talk about abortion because in that moment in Latin America, the legislation of the abortion was a very hot topic, okay? And well, we talk about abortion a little bit. We gave our main ideas. We said why we were in favor, why we were against. And I asked them to write a topic. With this, I just realized that one of the essays really made me very aware of the situation that we were in, because one of my students said, basically she said that she was in favor because she was very afraid to be raped in her city and to have that child. So that was her main reason, just why she was in favor of abortion. Why am I saying this? Because for me, it's very important, for you as an educator to know your context and to know what are the things that your students are very afraid of or that they have normalized. So I took this example because I feel that it's very strong. And for example, no one ever asked me when I was an educator how I was feeling about it, so how I was feeling about gender equality. And I feel that as educators, we have to take this risk and we have to get out of our comfort zone to see how our students are feeling, what are their fears, and how are we going to implement it in our curriculum. Also, well, that was just one example, but also one of the things that helped me a lot, during my advocacy with global schools, was the use of digital platforms, and also having contact with other advocates that were international. So for instance, I implemented several activities with other advocates that are invited to my classroom, and they were given speeches about the water that I told you before, how they were struggling with water as well. So my students realized that it wasn't just an isolated problem in our city, but it was happening in other contexts as well. The Philippines, we have speakers from the Philippines, we have speakers from Nigeria, and we have speakers from other countries in Asia as well, in Latin America. And I feel that this was an amazing opportunity because my students had the opportunity to talk with people that are not from our country or even from our kind of continent. So they were very far away, and they actually share even very cute pictures saying thank you, because it was one opportunity that they never had before. Also, another of the advantages of belonging to like global schools program, well, was the development of new literacies, let's say it that way. Like, for example, they gave us some plan lessons that help us to develop our own plan lessons with our own like national curriculum and implement it. And well, I didn't realize what time was it when I started, but I just wanted to mention like a few more things, like for example, talking about things that are very close to you, because they gave us like they gave us like lesson plans, and then we could contextualize everything that it was made for us, and also to compare it like to a local and global context. Like for instance, we were talking about the waters I was mentioned, and then we were talking about the oceans, and then we were talking about climate effects that I don't know, like the droughts that we that live in the desert we're having in our city. And well, just to mention it, like I'm not working with my students anymore, and it's something that I realized when I was working with them, that it's not that we are just teaching our learners or the students that are in our school, is that we are teaching like actually a community. Like so many of what the parents or the school community were telling to me, like the students were changing a lot. Like for example, I remember that there was one case when McDonald's had a BTS like campaign, and a lot of people were going to buy McDonald's. And then I asked my students like why they were buying McDonald's if it was just like with a different sticker that was from the BTS, that was like capitalism, and that we were falling into that just because they were putting a sticker. So I made them like question like, why are you buying, like why are we falling like in this like marketing strategies? Like think about it, just like think what is different from a normal McDonald's and a McDonald's for BTS, because seriously McDonald's was like crazy queues. So they were questioning these practices, and then the next day they thought about practices that their parents were following, and then they had a dialogue with the parents as well. And then they were coming with me, and then they were telling me like, oh, I told my mom that maybe we shouldn't buy this because it's just a marketing strategy and we actually don't need it. So it's an intergenerational process, really. It's not like we're just targeting our students in our classroom, but it's something that goes like outside borders as well, borders from that classroom.
Thank you so much, Abigail. That was a great example. Those were great examples you gave of the work you do. Kenneth, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me once again. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. I'm sorry, I'm not a natural presenter, so please allow me to use PowerPoint. I promise, as a global schools advocate, I will get better at this. So yeah, thank you once again. Just want to quickly introduce myself. Yeah, I'm part of the 2021 cycle of the Global Schools Program Advocate, and I've been very blessed to also serve as a mentor to around 7 to 8 upcoming advocates for the latest cycle, mostly focused in Asia. So my experience definitely with Global Schools Program has been absolutely inspiring and fantastic, mostly because I see how the youth I work with get inspired by the work of Global Schools Program. And a bit about myself, I started getting really into the SDGs and youth empowerment. That light bulb moment came on for me in 2020 in Switzerland, when we're sitting at a conference and we're recognizing for the first time teenagers that are really making a change in the world. And looking back in my life and all these decisions I've made, I have to convince my parents that me entering education is not a midlife crisis. In fact, it is finally that I found my purpose in life. And I'm very grateful for Global Schools Program for showcasing the work Kids for SDGs do in driving entrepreneurial thinking and SDG action in youth. Just like our wonderful keynote speaker, Ms. Elizabeth said, it's about critical thinking. It's about integrating entrepreneurship, innovation, and sustainability, things that most high schools generally don't focus on. My beef, so to speak, with the education system sometimes, especially in Asia, is still very driven by, hey, did you get an A on your test? Rather than, hey, what are you going to do with the knowledge you gained from these lessons? And of course, this beef, as I always jokingly say, is my fuel. How do we take the amazing knowledge given by education to support our youth become gainfully employed, become hopefully one day founders of their own social entrepreneur program? And in a nutshell, I have 3 verbs that I live by. I'm a very simple person. Ideate, incubate, and accelerate youth action. And there are 3 things that we do to help. And this is where I hope all of you out there who are looking for platforms, looking for solutions on how to empower hundreds, if not thousands of youth at one time, please come, give us a shout out, and Kids for SDGs on Instagram or through email. We'd love to connect. The first thing that we do on the ideate phase, we managed to partner with the Hong Kong government every year to launch arguably Asia's largest youth conference, including something called Pitch for the Future competition. We are very passionate that in September this year, in celebration of UNGA, that we will once again host this forum, and it's open for all. We have a huge global Pitch for the Future competition. We have SDG action panels. We have 100,000 Hong Kong, which is 12,000 US in scholarships already secured for our young scholars. We have a pioneer network. We have a youth council. If you want to engage with us, send your youth over to join in some of our activities. Please don't be a stranger. And that's the first part, ideate, getting youth excited about coming up with innovative solutions to tackle and solve the SDGs. Second, incubate. So my idea of incubation is, how do we get youth to spend a dedicated amount of time and learn the certain foundations necessary to solve the world problem they're committed to? And here we're very honored to have partnered with the United Nations Institute of Training and Research to design the first ever Youth Ambassador Asia Pacific program, where our students across Asia go through 10 weeks of training. They end up with a UNITAR certificate for their hard work, but most importantly, they lead movements in their schools because schools have to support them to join this program. We have sponsorships for students from around the world. So definitely something hopefully exciting for you. And finally, last but not least, how do we accelerate? And this is our own flagship program called the Kids for SDGs Young Changemakers program, where we walk through students through the 5 steps of social entrepreneurship and lead them to start their own project, scale the impact. I have written an article on the World Economic Forum talking about how do we empower youth social entrepreneurs. These are just 6 very simple concepts. The article is available online, so hopefully you can draw inspiration from some of the work that, not me, my students, our future. So I'm going to end on this slide. I'm very humbled and very truly honored to serve as a member of the Global Schools Program community. Hopefully we have 500 students working with us. In 5-10 years, hopefully scale to 5,000, 50,000, because the more we give back to our youth, the better our retirement lives will be. So once again, thank you so very much. And I am very honored to speak here today at the ECOSOC Youth Forum. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. And thank you, Abigail, for sharing your work with us. And I'm sorry I couldn't, I couldn't take everything that Abigail had to say, and I hope that during the questions and answer, we're able to take more of your work and also your experience working with students from your region to achieve education for sustainable development. So once again, if you have questions from everything, please do try to put it on the chat box and we'll try as much as possible to address it. Ramadani, I don't know if Ramadani is here now and would like to share.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, definitely. We can hear you.
Okay. Once again, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, happy Easter to you all. And I wish all the Muslims Ramadan Kareem. My name is Ramadan Ali Rashid from Tanzania, a global schools advocate and a mentor for the previous cohort. And now I'm working at Ramchanga Primary School in Serengeti. You are very welcome to Serengeti District for the tourism. In Tanzania, we are working with different schools, and I am a teaching fellow at Serengeti just for volunteering. We had various projects in our concern as an advocate for global schools. I have some tips to follow. For example, the solution-based projects that you will see them in the guidebook. And we use the approach of numerals and literals to the pupils who cannot read and write, and talent development to the pupils, as well as celebrating international days with actions, not just talking of the international days, for example, International Education Day or International Water Day, but with actions. We engage our pupils in various activities that are concerning about those days. For example, in the last year, we had an event on International Girl Child, and we had various participants, including teachers, pupils, and educational stakeholders and parents. They loved the event, and everyone was able to know various issues about girls. Talking of the talent development, we held a talent show in the last year. It was on 7th May, and many pupils showcased their talents, including singing, broadcasting as TV presenters and radio presenters. They showcased about, they dramatized on female genital mutilation. Indeed, it was an amazing opportunity to see the talents of the pupils. Another approach is on numerals and literacy. We do this for the passion, because some of the pupils cannot read and write, especially from standard 1 up to standard 4. So these pupils are treated with care, whereby some teachers, including me, we are just hosting, or we are just doing some sessions with them during the morning and during the evening hours. Okay. Another one is clubs. We form clubs, for example, English clubs, environmental clubs, and corruption clubs. These clubs are very essential for the pupils to be aware of different things. For example, in English clubs, we teach them grammar, tenses. We encourage public speaking through presentation skills to the pupils and leadership skills, so that they can be able to express on their own. If you and we have the morning speeches that we We hold them in the classes as well as sentence challenges. So these sessions help them to present themselves in English. That is a wonderful outcome. Another one, we have the small scale projects on environment, on gender issues, including gender equality. And we have the practical teaching. We just use the practical teachings in order to make them have the entrepreneurial skills so that they can be self-reliant when they leave the schools.
Okay. Thank you so much. Maybe just like 30 seconds to round up your point.
Okay, let me end up with, we do the donations, giving back to the society through helping different projects like TPTAP. We have currently announced and launched our project on Hedhi Salama menstrual education to the girls around the secondary and primary schools. Once again, thank you very much, Global Schools, for this opportunity, for being an advocate and this speaking opportunity on this ECOSOC forum. Thank you very much. You are welcome to Tanzania.
Thank you. And as they will say in Swahili, Sante. Thank you, Ramadani. And thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ramadani. Thank you, Abigail. And thank you, Kenneth, for sharing your work and the great work you are doing in your different regions to ensure that students and pupils get to know about sustainable development and the social issues that are really very important to our life right now. So I will be taking some questions. And like I said, if you want to ask some questions, you're not clear about anything, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat box and we'll address them. So I think the first question I'd like to address to either of Abigail and Kenneth, because Ramadani sort of mentioned it in his note, is what do you think was the immediate impact of your work on the pupils? What do you think was the immediate impact what was different, aside the normal way you were teaching before? So Abigail first and then Kenneth.
I think that giving the space to your students to question what they know and to question what they do, actually, because for me, it was very interesting that they, like, for example, when I told them that they should always question what they are learning for me, because the world that we are living in is not the world that is going to be in 2 years. And obviously they were always telling me like, so why are we learning this? And I was always telling them like, well, because this is going to help you to think critically, to develop like new skills, to work in teams. And those are like things that you will need in the future, but you should question what you are learning with me, because obviously the information is maybe it's gonna change, like the literacies are gonna change. Like for example, before the pandemic, I didn't know how to use TikTok, but I had to learn with my students to use TikTok because those are the things that they love. And we all had to learn how to use Zoom and how to mute ourselves when we were not talking, how to take turns and everything. So everything is evolving, and something that I found that my students really benefit from was they were questioning absolutely everything. Like even they were questioning, and it's like putting you like as an educator in a very vulnerable position as well, because they question you everything and they are always asking you questions about why are you saying this? Is this correct or not? But yeah, it's one of the benefits that I.
Great, thank you. Kenneth, you want to answer that question?
Yeah, thank you. I would like to address this from the advocate's point, because I think my biggest outcome is having been with Global Schools program now for a year or so. Yeah, I have seen the number of advocates from my region grow and scale. And not only that, we actually all were collaborating together. In fact, the Young Pioneers Forum came out of a discussion with a few Global Schools program advocates in Asia and be like, hey, how can we all come together and put on a good show so that our students have a platform to demonstrate their SDG action? So I really do look forward by end of this year, growing the Asian community of Global Schools advocates, and again, bring more excitement and gamify the approach to the SDGs. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kenneth, for that. And attendant participants really want to know how you were able to, integrate the SDGs activities into your teaching and classroom lessons, and how were you able to, fix these activities to fit your lesson hours? I will start with Ramadani on that and maybe take one more of the speakers afterwards. Ramadani.
Okay, yeah, I was able to implement these activities during the class hours and during the remedial hours and the morning times. Even in the weekends, we were able to incorporate these activities during those hours. It was very easy, and my pupils are enjoying and are very happy to do the activities, because we are just instilling the skills about creativity, social awareness, talents development, inclusiveness, and equality in education. And everyone is very well and is very aware of the SDGs and the activities that we can do in order to create a sustainable development, a sustainable future.
Thank you so much, Ramadani. Abigail, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned it before, like I was implementing one of the areas of sustainable development per month, and I was trying to like put something on the table. I wasn't giving my students like something very rigid. I was always telling them like, well, this month we are going to talk about social equality. So you can select any topic that you are passionate about, like social equality, and then you can do what we need to learn. That it was in like, maybe sometimes it was poetry, and others it was how to create an essay, and they were doing the essay or the poem about what we are talking about, like social equality, climate action, or economics. Like there were some people that were talking about fair trade, other people were talking about the oceans, other people were talking about like different things, but everything in our curriculum, like they learn how to create a poem, they learn how to create an essay, while also integrating and researching about sustainable development topics.
Thank you so much. I'm sure that you've all done justice to those questions. And just one more question I'd like to ask, and I would like to ask Kenneth directly. Someone wants to know, how will quality education contribute to sustainable development and climate action? I think this is a very important question. And so I'll just end the question up with you.
Yeah, in a very short summary, I think this is something Kids for SDGs have been trying to work on with fellow advocates from our region, is how do we help students pick the right classes and courses in education to achieve a certain outcome, such as climate change. Case in point, we have a lot of amazing youth who actually want to solve the climate problem. But there isn't much guidance or advisory from high schools or universities sometimes. Hey, what subjects you have to learn, what foundations you need to build, what networks you have to join to help you one day become a climate scientist, a climate activist, or a social entrepreneur advocating climate action. So therefore, I think the approach is kind of combining education to start in the so-called ideate phase, right? And then you look at employment, your first job, as your incubation phase, and finally entrepreneurship as your acceleration phase. So everything really ties in together. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for answering that question. And just to add, there's a question that is very related to that, and it's saying, what are the career options for youth who wish to indulge in global education? Now, this is a very important question, but to answer that question, the Global Schools will be organizing a symposium very soon, and the link will be in the chat box pretty soon. And in that symposium, we'll be able to answer all your questions about career and SDGs, and it's going to be really fantastic. So I'd say that you should go through the link and try to register for the event. Yes, so thank you so much to our panelists for giving such very rich response to the questions and for sharing their work. It's really very rich, and thank you for the work you're doing. Right now, we will go to the last session. As you know, we will be having a very big surprise at the end of this event. So to do that, we have the Global Schools program officers. The Global Schools has an important announcement to make, and you don't want to miss. So my colleagues from the Advocacy and Partnership team, Emmanuel, Fikayo, and Havis, will be delighted to share the important messages about the Global Schools lesson plans and how to use them, and how you can partner with the Global Schools, because there are some questions that we're asking about partnership, about how to get involved. And also, finally, the big announcement that we've all been waiting for. So I'll hand over to Emmanuel now, who will share about the Global Schools lesson plans and how to integrate them to your teachings in classrooms. Emmanuel, over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Yemisi. I've been on the side looking at all that has been going on. It's been a very colorful event. I can see a lot of the advocates, our speakers, and wonderful backgrounds, wonderful messages. It shows that a lot has actually been put into making this event a wonderful one. So I hope everyone can hear me. Best to check.
Yes, we definitely can hear you, Emmanuel.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Thank you so much. So as Yemisi has already said before now, that I will take us through some of our resources and other things that are actually going to be showing on the slide, then hand over to someone else to take us through the rest of the journey. So we work as a team. So definitely I will not be doing this alone. Like, I'll just do my part, hand over to the next person, and it's going to be awesome all through. So in the next slide, we'll see that we have resources, lesson plans that you can use as a teacher, or even like an educator, the teaching other aspects, working in other aspects of education. So basically, the resources are in a website, and very easy to access them. You could get resources for grade 1 up to grade 12. So no matter what class you teach or what kind of student you want to use them for, even as a parent, you can also get those resources and use them. So you can see the link to those two the resources as a lesson plan. You can use the first link, takes you directly to the lesson plan, or the one below, which takes you to all the resources where we have lesson plan, we have resources for educators, we have resources for students also, like games, so many other resources that they can use, book clubs, so many resources that encourage comic books, and will make children want to learn more about the SDG. So in the next slide, I will show you some of those grade, you can see grade 1 to grade 12, just like I've said. So this global school program, we offer about 60 lesson plans, and apart from the lesson plan, like I mentioned before, we have other resources. We have for children, for educators, and the like. The contents are very comprehensive, and they are actually be developed by institutes such as Harvard University, and they are very, very, resourceful. That they have been taught. Resources that are very made out of a lot of research and thoughts, not just something they just did because we wanted to do them. So they're going to be very resourceful to you. And they are done in order to help schools, teachers, and like I said, even parents can use them. If you have little children who want to use them, you can also use them. So let's now look at some of the benefits of using this lesson plan. So you can see, like I said before, they are free. They are free to use, and they are available in all grades. I've said that before, and very easily accessible. You can just go to the website, look at the resources. From the resources, you see lesson plan, resources for teachers, resources for students, very nice place to want to be. So always just try and check it out. The links have already been pasted on the WhatsApp, sorry, on the Zoom chat box. So you can just go there, click the link, just click away from getting access to those wonderful resources. Also, I said before, they are developed by Harvard University. So the experts went through research findings and knew that this was the best kind of resources that the children will need right now for the ESD and as we all know, for sustainable development. So one other thing that I would like to add is that they are actually available in multiple languages. They're available in so many languages. And the next slide, I'll show some of those languages. Oh, sorry, I probably might not have it there, but when you go there on the website, you will see them. So we have for French, we have English, we have Turkey, we have Greek, and we have Chinese, and we have so many of other languages that are coming up soon. Also very easy to use to your curriculum. You can easily adjust them because a lot of people in Africa complain about the SDG not being able to be kind of relatable to their situation. But this lesson plan has been made to address some of those issues. So when you look at the lesson plan, you can easily adjust it to your subject, teaching geography, teaching maths, teaching any STEM subject, you can easily do that. So in the next slide, I'm running up soon. I already Next slide is just the pledge. So basically, what we want you to do in the pledge, the link is there. You're going to paste on the chat box. The link will be there soon. So what we want to achieve with this is that it gives you a kind of sense of commitment. It's not like for some people, when we give them the pledge, especially in a written format, this pledge are actually like a Google format. You just fill them and submit them. But a lot of people feel that, oh, the pledge doesn't mean that somebody's going to arrest me if I don't do that. Somebody's going to, no. It's just like a commitment. That, okay, I want to do this for the global schools. If I want to do this for the SDGs, I want to do this. So there are a lot of things you will see there. So we're going to need contact with your school or your teacher or contact person so that to follow up and add it to a teachers forum, which colleague will explain soon. So I'm going to stop there and over back to you.
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel. Hafiz. Hafiz will do that.
Thank you, Yamisi, and hello everyone. This is Hafiz Jawad. I'm working as project officer with Global Schools Program, and one of my colleagues, Santa, is also here with me. So I will just run through the call for partnership and collaboration. So Global School Program is now open for new collaborations and partnerships. We work at both levels, global and local, both levels. So at global level, we partner with organizations like Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens and like Columbia University. And at the same time, we also partner with schools at local levels to implement the SDGs, Education for Sustainable Development in classrooms. So with this ECOSOC Youth Forum, we are also excited to open our call for partnership and collaborations with all of the organizations that are present here. Okay, so here you can see some of our global partners. We have some amazing partners and our global presence you can see is with Ban Ki-moon Center and Columbia Universities and some of the amazing organizations that have big impact in the global arena. So yeah. So what we offer to our partners, I would say that we have the knowledge and skills about how education for sustainable development can be successfully incorporated in school curriculums. We have comprehensive and localized curriculum resources. We also have increased prioritization of ESD by school leaders. So once they adopt our resources, they have increased prioritization of ESD. And similarly, they have increased programs in place to support teachers with pedagogy and SD knowledge. Similarly, they have increased best practices sharing and mobilization through our program. So this is what we offer to our partners. And next, I will present what we look into our partners when we collaborate or when we partner. So we look for the innovative solutions on education for sustainable development. We also partner with organizations that have like smart online and interactive tools to transform paradigm of conventional education infrastructure. We also look for the education for sustainable development solutions that can easily localize sustainable development. We also look for the global and local educational programs that have already set impactful footprints. We also look for 21st century skills building programs under global citizenship education. So we are interested in co-creation and co-branding. Okay, so if anyone or any organization who is interested in partnering with us, here we have the details, so you can easily reach out to us. Thank you very much.
Okay. Over to you, Fikayo.
Thank you very much, Hafiz and Emmanuel. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining all over the world. I'm Fikayo Aga, Project Officer for Advocacy, and I'm so elated and honored to be speaking here today. I'm excited to make the big announcements that we have delayed to now, and it's the Advocates Program launch happening today. So every year, Global Schools launches, a cohort-based advocates program which spans for 5 months. These selected advocates are educators and teachers around the world from over 60 countries that will work towards, bringing the Sustainable Development Goals and education for sustainable development into their classrooms and school communities. Now, you might ask, what do I stand to gain when I become, an advocate for the Global Schools program or a Global Schools advocate? So first of all, when you are admitted, when you are selected to be an advocate, you get a free 1 month, professional online training. And when you begin to start your mandates, you also get monthly professional developments. I'm sure we have advocates on this call that, have witnessed this and, have been blown away by the monthly professional developments workshops. And, these help to build your capacity to integrate the sustainable development goals in your lesson plans, your classrooms, and your school activities. Also, you have access to over 50 slides. It's a toolkit that, it's a robust toolkit that helps you in your mandate as an advocate. You have access to 60 lesson plans. Like my colleague has said, these lesson plans are translated into 8 different languages. You have access to a STEM guide, a social emotional learning guide, and also 6 education for sustainable development classroom and school-wide activities. This is just to inform you all the robust resources we have for teachers and educators all over the world. Also, you have access to join a global community where you can, interact with like-minded teachers that are doing amazing things in their local communities and their school communities. Also, you have a mentorship experience. We usually pair advocates with mentors, and these mentors are, teachers who have graduated and finished from, our cohort-based advocacy program. Aside from that, you have, opportunities to participate in conferences like the Vatican Youth Symposium and the International Conference on Sustainable Development. And lastly, well, we have more benefits, but, I'm just going to be sprinkling some of, the things that we offer. But when you get into the program, we have so many things to tell you. So you have a formal certificate, that is signed by the director of this UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. Yeah, so one of your duties as an advocate once you get into our program is to introduce education for sustainable development into your school community. Like I mentioned, you have a robust toolkit, so you'll be given a letter of confirmation, which you have to present to your school community and the leadership of your school. You have to conduct, workshops for your teachers in your school. Then you introduce it fully into your classrooms. Then, like I said, you integrate ESD activities in your classrooms and you have to inspire the world. So we have advocates who have written blog posts, who have posted a lot of things. We recently, launched a guidebook where a lot of advocates wrote about the experiences while they were, advocates during the tenure. Next slide, please. Now, if you're interested in becoming an advocate, as the launch is starting today, the applications are open and our website is going to be put on the chat box so you can apply. And don't forget that the applications will be closing the 20th of May. So we received a lot of applications. The last cohort, we received over 2,000 applications. So we want a lot of you to spread the word and, tell other people that are interested in applying to, apply to become a global schools advocate.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have any questions, sorry about that. If you have any questions,
Okay.
please just type in the chat box. I'm happy to answer your questions in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fikayo. Thank you, Emmanuel. And thank you, Hafiz, for the rich information you've given about the programs. Rest assured that anyone from anywhere across the world can access all our Global Schools materials, especially the lesson plans, the activities guide. And when you go to the website, the Global Schools website, you can access all of those materials and use them in teaching your students about SDGs. So this has been a very rich experience. It's been really nice and awesome having all of you from across the world join us today. And you've heard from 3 of our Global Schools advocates where they share their experiences, but we have over 30 more of those kind of experiences in our guidebook. And you can access the guidebook. The link will be shared with you in the chat box if it's not shared already, where you can access almost all the case studies we've taken from all our advocates, almost from some of our advocates from across the world, where they share with you some of the challenges and some of the prospects of teaching education for sustainable development and how it has really improved their classrooms. So once again, on behalf of Global Schools, I'd really like to thank you for joining us. Feel free to follow us across all our social media networks, because later today, the link for the Global Schools Advocates Program will be shared, and you'll be able to access more information about how to apply for the Global Schools Program of the next cohort. And with that said, thank you once again, and I wish you all a good evening, afternoon, morning, depending on where you are joining us from. And thank you for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thank you, Yamiti.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yamasi, for moderating.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, everyone.